So, welcome everyone to our learning lab today called A Life of Meaning. My name is Stephanie Wagner. I'm the Director of Learning and Development for Healthy Minds Innovations, and I'm also a board certified health coach. And in my coaching practice, I emphasize meditation coaching. And I'm really excited today to be here, really to explore this topic with you around a life of meaning. And I think part of the reason why I'm particularly excited about this topic is that I think this is one of the first learning labs that we've had around the topic of meaning. And my guess is the reason why you're here is perhaps maybe you feel like your life isn't meaningful, or, perhaps you have some sort of sense or intuition that there's more to life than doing your chores, driving your kids to their, after school activities, or even just filling your life with work. So I would be curious to hear from you now. If you would please share with me via chat what you hope to gain out of this learning lab today. What do you hope to get out of our time together? And so please go ahead and share with me via chat. What do you hope to gain from our learning lab today? Okay, so someone just lost their mom, deepen meditation practice, find more joy in everyday life, connecting with meaning, more from healthy minds, build mental resilience, help to make the world better, making skillful decisions, emotional control, meaningful career, new insights, revitalize passions, staying present, finding enjoyment. Lots of themes here. Oh, this is really wonderful. Move on after loss. Yeah, being more focused. Wonderful to see some of the themes here, and certainly this is a lot of the territory that we're going to cover during our learning lab today. So just to say that, one of the challenges of living a meaningful life is that often we think that we need to fill our life with a bunch of additional activities to find meaning. We think sometimes that we might need to do something really dramatic, like leave our jobs or join the Peace Corps. And now I will say that, sometimes these kind of bold moves are warranted, but it turns out that we don't need to do these drastic things to find meaning in our lives. In fact, we don't even need to do any additional activities at all. We can connect with a source of meaning right here, right now, through connecting with our purpose and our values. And what the science indicates is that it's not so much about the actual activities that we're engaged in that gives our life meaning. It's about the perspective that we take when we engage in these activities in our daily life. So imagine what it would be like if we could transform the most mundane tasks into sources of meaning, so that things like grocery shopping, answering your emails, or even cleaning your cat's litter box could be the basis for living a meaningful life. So let me share with you a little bit about what we're going to cover during our time together today. So you're going to notice on this slide that a lot of the topics that I'm talking about today are centered around the theme of purpose. And the reason for this is that purpose is the path to living a meaningful life. And so we're going to be talking a lot about purpose and values today. So I have, I think, about 30 minutes worth of content. So in just a moment, we're going to do a brief opening practice to get settled and grounded and to let go of all of our busyness from the day. Then we'll move into talking about what purpose means, the relationship between well-being and purpose, and then we're going to do an activity which is going to be a guided reflection on exploring and clarifying personal values. So for that portion of the training, you're going to want to make sure that you have something to write on. So a notebook, a pen, or some kind of digital solution if it's a Google Doc, or notes or something on your computer. So you'll want to have that handy. And then throughout our time together, rather than saving all of the tips or the strategies towards the end, I'm going to be talking about throughout strategies to bring meaning into our daily life. So that said, I'm hoping that there will be a little bit of time to answer some questions at the end of the Learning Lab today. You'll notice that there's a Q&A function in your Zoom toolbar. So please, if you have any questions that are coming up for you, to please place the questions in the Q&A box. What can happen is if you put your questions in the chat, because we've got the number keeps growing, we've got a lot of people on this training today, that it's very easy for those questions to get lost. So please go ahead and ask those questions in the Zoom toolbar. So, since we have such a large audience today, and I know that many of you might be new to Healthy Minds Innovations, I just want to share a little bit with you about who we are and what our perspective is around well-being. So, we are a nonprofit that's affiliated with a research institution at the University of Wisconsin-Madison called the Center for Healthy Minds. And what we do at Healthy Minds Innovations is we take decades of research that's been happening in neuroscience, and we translate the insights into tools to help people both cultivate as well as measure well-being. So everything that we do at Healthy Minds, ranging from our meditation app, our scientific measurements, our research studies, and educational programming just like this are all in service of our shared vision with the Center for Healthy Minds, that is really to support creating a kinder, wiser, more compassionate world. I'm seeing we have a lot of questions about being able to watch the recording of this presentation. So the answer is yes. This will be posted both on the Healthy Minds blog as well as on the Healthy Minds YouTube channel on Friday, which is tomorrow. So let me share with you a little bit about how we think about well-being at Healthy Minds, because this certainly influences the content that I'm going to be talking about today. So we have a unique scientific framework of well-being that features 4 different pillars. And so these pillars are awareness, which is our capacity to stay present; connection, which is all about our ability to develop and nurture healthy, connected interpersonal relationships, both with people that we like and that we know, and even with people that we don't like and that we don't know. The third pillar of our framework is a set of skills associated with curiosity, where we learn how to step back and examine our expectations and beliefs. And so this is the pillar of insight. And then the fourth pillar is really a set of skills that can help us stay motivated by finding meaning in our lives, and that is purpose. So you'll notice that we're going to spend a lot of time in the purpose pillar today, but this framework really features a set of skills that is coming from a convergence of themes in many different areas, including philosophy, psychology, the world's wisdom traditions, as well as different Asian meditative traditions. And so, as I mentioned earlier, purpose is the path to discovering meaning in our lives. So, the way that we define purpose is that it is clarity concerning personally meaningful aims and values that one is able to apply in daily life. So, when we talk about living with purpose, what we're talking about here is living a life infused with meaning. So you can sort of think about purpose as sort of like the North Star, that compass that guides the sense of direction in your life. And you can actually have many different purposes that guide you. So for me personally, one of my purposes is to support the well-being of others. I try as best as I can to support the well-being of my students, my friends, my husband, and more. And so I do this many different ways, including through the classes that I teach, the courses that I write, the food that I cook at home, and even my self-care routine is very much driven by this underlying motivation. And so, as I mentioned earlier, it's not so much about the activities that we engage in, it's more about the perspective that we bring when we engage in these activities. And so, for me, I can see that the overarching theme around these activities is this aim that I have to support the well being of others. So, I just want to say that I know that the topic of purpose can often lead to a lot of existential angst, and especially if you're not feeling clear about your purpose or if you feel like your life lacks meaning. But this learning lab is designed to help break this down in a way that hopefully makes the topic more relatable and easier to practice in daily life. And like the rest of the skills in the Healthy Minds framework of well being, purpose is a skill that can be learned. So, what this means is that we can learn to actually train ourselves to connect to the source of well being that underlies all of our activities. We just need to recognize it. And it turns out that there are many different benefits to living a meaningful life. And so let's take a look at here what the science has to say about the benefits of purpose. And so this comes from a synthesis of research. So we can look at purpose impacting three different areas. There are benefits to the body, the mind, and our behavior. So, as it relates to the body, a greater sense of purpose helps to increase resilience to stress, which means that we really improve our ability to bounce back more quickly from challenging situations. It can also decrease heart problems and incidences of stroke. Also, people with a greater sense of purpose and meaning tend to live longer. In terms of the mind, we see things like greater life satisfaction, more positive emotions, more grit and perseverance, as well as overall psychological well being. And then, as it relates to behavior, not surprisingly, greater purpose then leads to more caring behaviors, better academic performance, and more volunteering. So now that we've had an opportunity to talk a little bit about what purpose is and what are some of the benefits of purpose, which of course, again, purpose is the path to living a meaningful life, I'd like to just lead us in a brief practice here to settle in and help us to connect with meaning right here in this moment. So go ahead and just see if you can find a position to practice in that feels supportive to your well being. Allow your spine to be loosely straight and relax the muscles in your body, even if it's just a little bit. And you can choose to practice with your eyes open or your eyes closed. And then simply bring awareness to something that helps you to feel grounded and present. Maybe take a couple of slow, mindful, deep breaths, or bring awareness to the feeling of your seat being supported by your chair or whatever you're sitting on, or the feeling of your feet on the floor. And just allow yourself to land and accept however you're feeling right now, whether you're scattered, whether you're calm. Just be with whatever you're feeling right here at the beginning of our time together. Okay, so next we'll move into a bit of a reflection here. So take a moment to reflect on why you decided to join this learning lab today. Maybe you feel like your life is lacking meaning, or you're just generally interested in learning more about well being. So take a moment to reflect on your deeper motivation for joining this class today. And as you do this, see if you can connect with a kind and compassionate motivation here. Is there something motivating you to attend this training that seems bigger than you? Something that makes it really worthwhile? Maybe it's that you see the positive impact it will have on your work, on your family, or something else. And so just see if you can connect with that deeper motivation that includes others. Okay, and then you can just let go of the reflection and just open your eyes. And I'll invite you to share via chat here again. Um, I'd be curious to hear what was your deeper motivation that came up for you for joining this training today. So if you will feel free, please, to share via chat. I'll give you just a second. Find your path to healing, enhance your understanding, family, be the best version of yourself, finding purpose, connection, spread love, be a better father, reduce suffering, feel grounded, not scattered, have agency, finding peace with myself, improve my well being, connect to others and give back, flourish, strengthen relationships. Yeah, be more connected with my family and my loved ones, be more positive. This is really, really inspiring. Thank you so much for your sharing. You can continue to share via chat and just let it run its course. And of course, if you find the chat distracting, you can absolutely feel free to close it on your end as well. So, the wonderful thing about the reflection that we just did is that it can be done related to any activity. We just practice bringing meaning into what we're doing, finding the meaning that is underlying, the reason why you decided to attend this training today. So, let's take a look at how we can actually bring this guided reflection to life. So, the next time you are engaged in an activity, you can just take a pause to bring meaning to it. So let's just take an example of something that many of us do at work, responding to emails. So the first thing that you can do is to set the intention to bring awareness to your deeper motivation while you're in the middle of the task. And so the way that you do this is you just simply pause and reflect. Why are you doing this task? What is the deeper meaning? And so to go back to the examples of the example of the emails, you might just ask yourself, why am I responding to these emails? What is the deeper reason behind the fact that I feel like I have to do it? Is there some kind of kind and compassionate reason? What might be motivating me to do this that might be bigger than myself? And then whatever emerges from that reflection, to simply remember this motivation from time to time as you engage in the task. So you might think, I'm responding to these emails out of kindness, or whatever that deeper meaning is motivating you to do the task. So you'll just, do whatever you're doing, and then time to time, just take a pause, remember the deeper meaning. And this is a way to really connect with meaning, even in the midst of the mundane. Again, remember, it's not so much about the activities that we're doing, it's about the perspective that we're bringing when we engage in these activities. And so, if you had a hard time connecting with the deeper meaning in this guided reflection, there's a way to sort of get around this. And I want to share this with you because I don't want to just assume that you were all able to connect with the deeper meaning. So, the way that we can actually connect with deeper meaning is through keeping asking why until the deeper meaning reveals itself. So, here's how this works. Before you engage in a task, you just simply ask yourself again, like I said previously, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this particular task? And so I'll just give you an example again from my own life here. So I don't know about you, but for those of you that cook meals for your family, it can really be challenging. It can kind of be a drag. And the only way that I can actually cook healthy food is if I go to the grocery store, which also can feel like just another task to do in the midst of a very busy life. So before I go to the grocery store, I ask myself, why am I grocery shopping? And so the first answer that comes to my mind is, of course, because I need groceries. And of course, this answer in and of itself isn't exactly imbued with a lot of meaning. So I ask why a second time. I ask, why do I need groceries? And the answer then that comes to my mind is something like, because I want to cook meals for the week. Okay, well, again, where's the meaning there? So then I ask myself the third question, why do I want to cook meals for the week? The answer is because I want to eat healthy. Okay, getting a little deeper, getting a little more clear. I ask myself again, why do I want to eat healthy? And then I come up with something that feels more meaningful so that I can have good health and continue to have energy to do the work that I love to do. So you can see, I finally, after continually asking why, landed on the deeper meaning, which is that I value health. But the initial response to this inquiry was really mundane and really not very meaningful or satisfying. Like, of course, I'm going to go grocery shopping because I need food. But when we keep asking why, we can find that deeper meaning. And then we use that deeper meaning as the lens through which we engage in the activity. So for me, I can shift from grocery shopping as simply a transaction of just buying food into something that represents a really important value to me, which is health. I also know that one of my values is generosity. And so I can see that grocery shopping and cooking are acts of generosity for my husband so that he's got healthy meals that are ready for him to bring to work. So maybe during that guided reflection about the deeper, meaning behind joining this learning lab, maybe you had a hard time finding that deeper meaning, and that's okay. If that's the case, you can just continue to ask yourself why and see if you can connect with that deeper meaning. Because the truth is that meaning is not something that exists outside of us. It's not something that we need to find out there to do something to cultivate it. It actually underlies every single thing that we do. We just need to get clear about it, recognize it, and connect with it regularly. So you can think of finding meaning almost as like a three-step process. So we start with clarifying, which is connecting to that deeper meaning. It's about helping us to see the meaning that's there. I just gave you a couple of ways on how to do that. And then what we do, that second step, is we apply that deeper meaning as the perspective through which we engage in an activity. So we give it a try when we're doing things like going grocery shopping, answering emails, cleaning the cat box, driving your kids to soccer, that kind of thing. And so then, once we get a little bit of experience of applying this deeper meaning through different activities, then we can begin to extend. And what extend means is we can extend it into different situations in our life, including even the most challenging and difficult situations, and also into our relationships. And we're going to talk about a couple of ways to do that in just a moment. So, another doorway to finding meaning that can be really fruitful is through connecting with our values. And so, values are principles that guide our actions. So, when we talk about values that are beneficial to well being, we're talking about positive values like generosity, authenticity, kindness, compassion, patience, well being, hard work, humility. So these are just a few of many, many, many different positive and beneficial values. And these are the qualities really that help us to define what we find important and meaningful in our lives. They are essentially the principles that guide us towards our meaning and purpose. So these are just a few of the many examples of values, and we're going to do an activity, as I mentioned, in just a moment to help you clarify your values. So, the science tells us that clarifying our values has some really important benefits for our well being, not only for our mind, but even for our ability to deal with stress. It turns out that reminding ourselves of values can do things like help us to reduce worrying, it can help increase our positive emotions, and even decrease stress hormones in the body. So, when we get stressed, we can often have a bunch of negative thoughts. And this is something that the scientists call rumination. And when we start having these negative thoughts that are just churning and churning, they trigger the stress response in our body. And what the research shows is that it turns out that taking just a few moments to bring to mind an important personal value can actually begin to reverse this process. So, in one study, scientists gave participants negative feedback on an IQ test. And as you can imagine, that was not a very pleasant experience. And not surprisingly, this negative feedback about their IQ triggered a lot of negative thinking. Like, I can kind of imagine this would involve a lot of self criticism, like, I am stupid or something like that. So, next, participants were asked to remind themselves of an important personal value. And it turns out that this remembering of the value helped them to do things like reduce their rumination, it created positive emotions, and it even decreased the stress hormones in their bloodstream as measured by cortisol. So I wanted to share a story kind of related to this point of when I was an executive director of learning and development for a large corporation that I worked for prior to coming to Healthy Minds. And I had a large team of people that were reporting to me at the time, and I had a particular person on my team that was struggling to perform their tasks according to their recently revised job description. And I had to have a coaching conversation with them to address these performance related issues. And as a very new manager at the time, I was filled with a lot of anxiety and a lot of dread around having to have this conversation with the potential that it was not going to go well, that it was going to go poorly. And so what I did is before the conversation, as I was prepping for the coaching, I brought to mind an important value of mine, which is the value of compassion. And so, just as a reminder, the compassion is sort of our wish and our motivation to help alleviate suffering, both in ourselves and others. And I could see that in my employees' performance that they were really struggling with their job. And in turn, the teams that they were interacting with on a regular basis were also really suffering as a result of this employee's poor performance. And so when I was able to connect with the value of compassion, I realized that this conversation was a way to actually help alleviate the suffering of those involved, to help alleviate the suffering of my employee, to help alleviate the suffering of the teams that were interacting with this person on a regular basis. And so by bringing compassion as the lens through which I was having this coaching conversation, it really helped me to transform something that was a source of anxiety into one that had a lot of deeper meaning to me. So we're going to move into now an exercise, an activity to really help to clarify values. So, when I showed you that list of values on the previous slide, perhaps there were some that were really resonant with you, and that's great. And perhaps for some of you, you're kind of confused. So this activity is really designed to help you get clear about your values. So this is where you're going to need your piece of paper and your pen or kind of a digital note to take notes on. So let's just go ahead and ground ourselves in a couple of moments of mindfulness here. So just kind of connect back with yourself. Take a couple of slow, deep breaths. And so we'll begin the reflection by bringing to mind some activities that you spend a lot of your time doing that feel important to you. So these activities could be related to your work, your family, your hobbies, or even your self care routine. And so just start by making a list of some of the ways that you spend your time. And so once you have gotten some items on your list, then just consider what these activities tell you about your personal values. So for example, if you spend a lot of time, exercising, then important values might be health and well-being, Or maybe if you do volunteering for an organization that has some kind of mission, like reducing bias and discrimination, then maybe your values underlying that are something like inclusion or social justice. So just see if you can find a few personal values that inform how you spend your time. And again, you can just write these down on your piece of paper. And there's no need to get too tight about it. Just write whatever comes to mind. This can be helpful. And so, if you have a few values that came up as a result of this reflection, then just pick one that seems particularly meaningful to you and just put a circle around or an X next to that meaningful value. And now begin to reflect on some of the situations, some specific situations when you express this value. How does this value show up in your life? How does it guide your thoughts and your actions? So just explore here and see what you notice. I'll give you about 30 more seconds here. Okay, you can always continue this reflection after the learning lab today. So we'll just come back out of the reflection now, and I'm going to have my colleague Michelle post the poll right now, which I'd like to hear from you. Were you able to clarify an important value? Yes or no? Or other? And if there is another, please share in the chat. Okay, so some people got lost in the exercise, not enough time. Yeah, this was a pretty quick way to do this. So I encourage you to do this actually after the fact. You can pause the recording. So we had 86% say yes, 11% say no, and 3% said other. Okay, great. So let's go ahead now. And if there was a value that you were able to connect with, um, and thank you for sharing that. Someone just said more like confirmed rather than identified. That's wonderful. So go ahead and share with your with us what your value was that came about. Connection, patience, compassion, teamwork, family connection. Wonderful. Pleasure, family, well-being, faith. Great. Wonderful. Okay, so I saw some requests for the steps for this activity. So we will do our best to put something together and get that out to you. And for those of you that were asking for the list of values, just a reminder, I did just go through that a moment ago. So here are some of the values that I talked about earlier. So, of course, not all values are created equally. There are values that are positive and beneficial to well-being. And so these are some kinds of those values that might come up for you. So generosity, patience, compassion, authenticity, well-being, humility, kindness, achievement, and hard work. And I know we're clicking along here, but just know that there's an opportunity to go deeper in the Healthy Minds program app. If you decide that you want to learn more and dig more into purpose, certainly you can go into the purpose section of the Healthy Minds app, which I'll talk about a little bit. So, just to then go back to these three steps that we just learned earlier. So, clarify, apply, and extend. So, here, what we did during this activity is we clarified an important value or values to us. And the way that we did this is through exploring the way that we spend our time. Now, there are actually many, many different doorways into clarifying values. Other ways to do this are to, for example, think about people that are really inspiring to you, people that are historical figures or mentors or important people in your life. And you can really actually just look towards these figures and think about what are the values that this person that seem to drive this person, that they seem to embody. And you can get a little bit more clear about your values that way too. So that's just another example of how to clarify your values. This isn't the only way to do it. There are many, many different ways that you're introduced to throughout the course of the Purpose Pillar in the Healthy Minds Program app. So now that we just had the opportunity then to really uncover and clarify our values, we can apply them into different life circumstances. And now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a couple of different ways in which we can bring our values into different situations. So, one way is that we can actually bring meaning into our relationships. So, the way that you can do this is while you're interacting with people or before you're going to interact with someone, you can just bring an important value to mind and then you can just simply let it guide what you say and do. Simply let it infuse your interaction. So, for example, if kindness is the value that you're working with, or I saw actually joy and compassion come up as a couple of values that also came up as themes in the chat, like then let that be what you're bringing into the relationship. Let it be what you're bringing into the conversation with this other person. So if kindness, compassion, or joy is the value, bring it to mind at the beginning of the interaction, in the middle of the interaction, and simply see how it goes. So the way that I do this is an example is when I am waiting for my husband to come home from work. So I work at home all day and I've got my little office here. And he has a very demanding job as a marriage and family therapist. And so a value that I bring to mind before he comes home after his workday is patience. And the reason why I bring patience into the relationship is because I have this really strong desire to connect right when he gets home. And what I've learned about him is that he needs a moment to land. Like he needs some space to kind of let go of his day. And because I've been by myself all day long on my computer, I'm like, I'm ready to interact. So I bring patience to mind and I just like really approach interacting with him through the lens of patience. And it is extremely helpful to me. And so then we can do this with different relationships, different values. Maybe it's not your partner or your spouse, maybe it's your child, maybe it's a coworker or a friend. But this type of way of infusing meaning into our relationships just brings a level of intentionality and meaning that we just normally don't connect to. And so then once we have the experience applying meaning in kind of different areas of life, like our relationships, we can then begin to extend it into finding meaning when we encounter difficult situations in our lives. So here's an example of how you can do this. And these tips are all going to be included in the recap toolkit email that you're going to get after today. So, when you encounter a difficulty, maybe you get some bad news or something doesn't go according to plan, see if you can choose a value to reframe this situation. So, you can simply ask yourself, how can I view this situation differently through the lens of this value and see what comes up? See if this value then changes what you say or do or how you view the situation. So for me, in the story that I shared earlier, I was really able to approach the coaching conversation with my employee with a lot more balance and a lot less anxiety because I had compassion as the perspective. In other examples that I've encountered more recently, where I may encounter like a little bit of interpersonal conflict with someone, I often bring the lens of learning, the value of learning into these conversations, because what it does is it helps me to get to know myself. It helps me to get to know the other person. It helps me really see these opportunities as a chance to learn and grow rather than criticizing myself or comparing myself. So, just another example here of how we can bring meaning into our daily lives when we're even encountering difficulties. So, as I mentioned before, the meaning is already there. We just need to connect to it, and we can connect to it through our purpose. We can connect to it through our values. So let's just recap then what we have covered so far today. So we did a brief opening practice where we grounded ourselves. We really looked at the motivation that we're bringing into attending the Learning Lab today. We explored what is purpose. We looked at the relationship between well-being and purpose. We did an activity to explore and clarify our personal values. And then we really explored many different strategies to live with meaning. So as I mentioned, the strategies that I covered today, the tips of living with meaning, are all going to be included in this recap toolkit that you'll be sent in the email following today's training. And if, for example, if you felt like the reflection activity was going too quickly, we really invite you to check out the Healthy Minds blog with the YouTube recording, and you can really slow that down by pausing the recording and engaging in the reflection in a way that really feels more meaningful to you. And as always, of course, the Healthy Minds program app is available as well to take you through a lot of different practices to help you uncover the meaning in your life. So let's do this. Let's see if there are some questions here that I can respond to. So we've just got really just a couple of minutes here. So let's see. So one person asks, how do you remember to do this before you interact? So one thing that can be really helpful, and I do this a lot personally, is if you have your day organized in a way that you have a calendar. What I do at the very beginning of my day is I'll kind of like look at, what my activities are going to be for the day, like what meetings, trainings I'm engaging in, what are the people that I'm going to be, meeting with. And I'll just really, with some intention, think about what is the perspective, what is the value that I want to bring into these meetings and into these relationships. So I often connect with things like compassion, kindness, learning, achievement. So it really is just having a little bit of intention. And for me, as I'm reviewing my calendar for the day, it really helps me to really bring this with some intention into my day. So that would be the way to remember to do this before you interact. I'm sure that there are other strategies. I mean, I think another idea would be, we have these transition points in our day all the time. We move from meeting to meeting. We move from interaction to interaction, from activity to activity. And so if you can actually use these transition points as points to practice, connecting with a value, that can also be really fruitful. So you just begin to practice bringing awareness to the transition. So for example, after this, I'm going to attend a meeting at HMI. And as I transition, I'll just think about, what is it that I'm kind of bringing to this meeting? What's the deeper meaning behind my participation in this particular group at Healthy Minds? And so using those transition points can also be helpful. And it's a really wonderful way actually to practice in daily life, because I think that what happens is we are so on autopilot, we get so caught up and distracted. Really learning to practice in these transition moments can be really, really helpful. So I hope that that was beneficial to you. So someone else says, what if the values one chooses seem to originate from a place of making myself feel better rather than improving those around you in the world? So, you know what? I think that there is a perspective here, which healthy self-improvement is important, right? When we are the best version of ourselves, we will have a better impact on the world. So if you can just see it from the lens of not selfish self-improvement, but like healthy self-improvement, like, yeah, I am wanting to improve myself because I actually want to be a better parent. I want to be a better friend. I want to have more energy to do the meaningful things that I want to engage in. I think that if you can just remember that healthy self-improvement has a positive ripple effect, and also just remember the truth of interconnectedness. Like, we are interconnected beings. Simply by you being you in the world, it has an impact on the world around you. It has an impact on the way that you interact with folks at the grocery store, at the coffee shop, with your teams. So even if you're engaged in a self-improvement plan, it is healthy self-improvement, because the truth of interconnectedness is that your state of mind, your inner motivations, your balanced nervous system, impacts the world around you in a positive way. Okay. Okay, so I am sorry. I know we have so many questions that we were not able to get to today, but we were only scheduled to be here for 45 minutes. So we'll see if we can figure out a way to answer some of the additional questions. But just want to say thank you so much for your time today. We are going to ask that you fill out a survey that will be sent to you when you close this webinar. Your feedback is incredibly meaningful to us as a team. It allows us to create offerings that are meaningful to you. What are the topics you're interested in? What specifically did you like about today? What did you want differently about today? And then, we take this as an opportunity to grow, because our mission as an organization is really to support you, and help us to create a kinder, wiser, more compassionate world. So, we are a nonprofit dedicated to bringing to you meaningful offerings that meets the need of our community. So if you have the means and resources and inspiration to do so, to support our work, please consider making a donation to us at Healthy Minds Innovations. It helps us fuel the science. It helps us put together offerings like this to make them widely available. Your support and your generosity makes our work possible. So with that said, if there's any parting words that you have about what you took away from this learning lab today, I would love to hear from you. I would love to have you share in the chat. What's your biggest takeaway from today? And yeah, it just helps me know you better. And it's really, really wonderful to have you here. Great. Thank you. Oh. Thank you so much, everyone. You're free to sign off or to read the chat, which is what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn off my camera and I'm going to sit here and I'm going to soak in all of your learnings from today. And so we'll just keep it open for another couple minutes here. But thank you so much for your interest in the science, for your practice, for your pursuit of well-being. It has a real benefit on you and the world around you. Shannon, are you still here? Okay. So Shannon's question is, as a therapist, I like examples of drawing others' attention to deeper purpose. I have my ways, but like hearing your examples of not just how you clarify for you, but as a coach or a consultant, how would you get the employee or other clients to tap into theirs? So, I mean, I think for me personally, it's partly about yeah, it's kind of around like the way in which I ask questions, right? So as a therapist or a coach, it really is about asking just questions that help me be able to understand a little bit more about what's going on in their inner world. And often what will come up for me is like some kind of theme. So, for example, I was working with somebody earlier today that was like really struggling with like a job task that they had to do. And what was very clear to me as I was listening to them is that there was a certain value that felt like it was being compromised as a result of being asked to do this job task. So simply by uh, asking the question about, understanding a little bit more about their perception of the situation, allowed me to kind of hear, oh, I hear that there's actually something that you feel like you're being asked to do that's going counter to one of your values, which was integrity and learning. And so, what I was able to do is I reflected that back then, of course, and just kind of checked out my thinking and then just invited this person to think about, is there a way that you could actually bring these values to this task that you're being asked to do in a way that makes it feel more workable for you? So rather than feeling like you're being asked to do something that's against the value, is there a way to actually leverage the value and bring the value into the task? And there certainly was. So that was really helpful. And I think for me as a coach, it has a lot to do with leveraging themes that I'm hearing come up from people. So I don't know if that resonates for you at all, Shannon, but that's kind of what comes up for me. A lot of it just has to do with like, what is it that I'm hearing underlying what they're sharing, like being able to kind of hear the deeper meaning. And then if it's not clear to me, like if I'm really not able to kind of hear the themes, I might ask just something like the deeper why question. So, what do you think is motivating your response to this? Is there something greater than the surface level? Because I think so much of what happens is we experience something on the surface level and we might like have an interpretation of that, but when we can invite people to go like a level deeper, there's always something deeper to see there. So part of the work as a therapist and a coach, as I see it, is like helping them connect with the deeper meaning. So that's kind of how I see it. I'd be curious, Shannon, if you're still here, if you want to share something via chat about whether that resonates with you or if what your strategy is, that would be wonderful to hear. Hmm. All right, great. Thank you so much. It looks like, yeah, so you asked directly, is there a deeper meaning for you? Hmm. Ah, gotcha. I'm not familiar with that exercise, so I'll check that out. Yeah. All right, I think we're concluding. So thank you so much for everything. For those of you that are still on, you can check out the email with some of the tips that you'll receive after this. So thank you so much. Appreciate you very much.